स्टडी IQ IAS, अब तैयारी हुई अफोर्डेबल।
Hello students, welcome to StudyIQ's initiative, the podcast. I am your host Dipansh Moorjani. So get your juices flowing because it is time for the podcast of the day. In the last episode, we had discussed all the provisions related to joint sitting of our parliament. And in today's episode, we are going to discuss budget in detail. Sir, can you give us some brief information about budget?
Before we start, I want to tell you something, that this is not an advertisement. However, it is a global vision of StudyIQ to provide most affordable and effective education. In our Prelims to Interview program, that is P2I program, you will be accompanied by the best faculties of the field, and you will also receive the one-to-one mentorship in this program. Moreover, you will receive prelims as well as mains test series according to UPSC syllabus. So, for huge discount, you can use my code AVLIVE. All the links are pinned in the comment section.
Annual budgeting started in India in the year 1860. The term budget has nowhere been used in the constitution, rather refers to the budget as an annual financial statement under Article 112. The budget is a statement of estimated receipts and expenditure of the Government of India in a financial year along with other provisions. Financial year of Government of India begins on 1st April and ends on 31st March of the following year. Overall, the budget contains the following documents. Number 1, estimates of revenue and capital receipts. Number 2, ways and means to raise the revenue. Number 3, estimates of expenditure. Number 4, details of the actual receipts and expenditure of the closing. Number 5, financial year and the reasons for any deficit or surplus in that year. And number 6, economic and financial policy of the coming year for Government of India.
Sir, prior to 2017, Government of India had two budgets. So can you throw some light on those two budgets?
General budget consisted of the estimates of receipts and expenditure of all the ministries of the Government of India except the railways. The railway budget was separated from the general budget in 1924 on the recommendation of Ackworth Committee Report 1921. In the year 2017 recently, the central government merged the railway budget into the general budget. Henceforth, there is only one budget of Government of India, which is called Union Budget.
Sir, can you elucidate some constitutional provisions which are related to budget?
The President shall, in respect of every financial year, cause to be laid before both the Houses of Parliament a statement of estimated receipts and expenditure of the Government of India for that year. No demand for a grant shall be made except on the recommendations of the President. No money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund of India except under appropriation made by law. No money bill imposing tax shall be introduced in the Parliament except on the recommendation of the President, and such a bill shall not be introduced in Rajya Sabha. No tax shall be levied or collected except by authority of law. Parliament can reduce or abolish a tax. However, Parliament cannot increase the tax. A money bill or a finance bill dealing with taxation must be introduced only in the Lok Sabha and cannot be in the Rajya Sabha. Vote on the demand for grants is the exclusive privilege of Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha has no power in this regard. The Rajya Sabha should return the money bill to the Lok Sabha within 14 days, which is mandatory. Otherwise, it shall be considered as it is passed by the Rajya Sabha. The budget shall distinguish expenditure on revenue accounts from other expenditures. The expenditures charged on the Consolidated Fund of India shall not be submitted to the vote of Parliament. However, it can be discussed by the Parliament.
Sir, in terms of Consolidated Fund of India, there are two types of expenditures. One, expenditure charged upon Consolidated Fund of India, and second, expenditure made from Consolidated Fund of India. So can you explain to us the difference between these two expenditures in simple words?
Expenditure charged upon the Consolidated Fund of India is meaning that This charged expenditure is non-votable by Parliament. It can only be discussed by Parliament. However, expenditure made from the Consolidated Fund of India, that means this type of expenditure has to be voted by Parliament.
Sir, after understanding all the constitutional provisions related to budget, now we are eager to understand the procedure for enactment of budget.
The budget goes through the following 6 stages in Parliament when it is put in front of the Lok Sabha. Number 1, presentation of the budget. Number 2, general discussion on budget. Number 3, scrutiny by departmental committees for the budget laid before the House. Number 4, voting on demands for grants. Number 5, passing of appropriation bill. And number 6, passing of the finance bill. Now we will discuss the introduction of the budget. Conventionally, the budget is presented to the Lok Sabha by the finance minister on the last working day of February with the speech known as the budget speech. Since 2017, the presentation of budget has been advanced to the 1st of the February. Now the economic survey presented one day or few days before the presentation of the budget. This report is an indicator of the status of national economy. There shall be no discussion on the budget on the day on which it is being presented to the House. The budget is laid before the Rajya Sabha, which can only discuss it and has no power to vote on the demands for the grants. Now I would like to highlight some documents which are very important for students to understand when any budget document is being presented to the Parliament, what all documents and what all elements consist in that budget. Number 1, first of all, the budget speech. Number 2, annual financial statement will be laid before the House by the finance minister. Number 3, the demands for the grants will be included in the budget. Number 4, appropriation bill. Number 5, finance bill. Number 6, expenditure budget. Number 7, receipt budget. Number 8, expenditure profile. Number 9, memorandum explaining the provisions in the finance bill. Number 10, budget at glance. And number 10, outcome of the budget. The statement mandated under the FRBM Act includes that the 3 elements should contain in the budget. Number 1, macroeconomic framework statement. Number 2, financial policy strategy statement. And number 3, medium-term fiscal policy statement.
Sir, during the enactment of budget, general discussion is considered very important. So can you give us some interesting information about general discussion on budget?
General discussion begins a few days after the budget is being presented in front of the House. General discussion takes place in both the Houses of Parliament and lasts usually for 3 to 4 days after the discussion starts. During this stage, the Lok Sabha can discuss the budget as a whole or on any question of principle involved in the budget. No cut motion can be moved, nor can the budget be submitted to the vote of the House during the discussions. Number 4, that finance minister has a general right of reply at the end of the discussion.
Sir, next important step is scrutiny by departmental committees. So can you throw some light on this step?
Post general discussion on the budget, the 24 departmental standing committees of Parliament examine and discuss in detail the demands for the grants of the concerned ministers and prepared reports on them. These reports are submitted to the both Houses of Parliament for the consideration. The standing committee system established in 1993 makes parliamentary financial control over the ministries much more detailed, close, in-depth and comprehensively.
Sir, when we study budget, voting for demand of grants is very important topic. So can you explain this topic in simple words?
Voting on demands for grants is exclusive privilege of the Lok Sabha. Rajya Sabha has no power of voting this kind of demands. Voting is confined to the votable part of the budget, which is the expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India and which is not submitted to the vote. These kind of demands are presented each and every ministry wise. Each demand is voted separately by the Lok Sabha. and the demand becomes a grant after it has been duly voted in the House. A motion can also move to reduce any demand for grants. Such motions are called the cut motions, which are of three kinds. Number 1, policy cut motion. It represents the disapproval of the policy underlying the demand. It states that the amount of demand to be reduced to rupees 1. The members have an option to advocate an alternative policy. The second cut motion is economy cut motion. It represents the economy that can be affected in the proposed expenditure. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced by specified amount. The third cut motion is token cut motion. Token cut motion ventilates a specific grievance that is within the sphere of responsibility of Government of India. It states that the amount of the demand be reduced by rupees 100.
Sir, the next important element of budget is appropriation bill. So how can we understand it in simple words?
The Constitution states that no money shall be withdrawn from the Consolidated Fund of India except under appropriation made by law. An appropriation bill is introduced to provide for the appropriation out of the Consolidated Fund of India all money required to meet. The first, the grant were voted on by the Lok Sabha. Second, the expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. The government cannot withdraw money from the Consolidated Fund till the enactment of the Appropriation Act. Amendment cannot be proposed to the appropriation bill in either house of the parliament. That will vary the amount of altering the destination of the any grant voted or of varying the amount of any expenditure charged on the Consolidated Fund of India. The appropriation bill becomes the Appropriation Act when it is assented by the President. Appropriation Act authorizes the payments from the Consolidated Fund of India.
Sir, the next important provision is vote on account. So can you explain us that why it is considered so important?
Passing an Appropriation Act takes time and usually goes on till the end of April. However, the government needs money to carry on its normal activities after 31st March, which is the end of financial year. To resolve this issue, the Constitution has authorized the Lok Sabha to make any grant in advance in respect to the estimated expenditure for a part of the financial year. It is generally granted for 2 months for an amount equivalent to 1/6 of the total estimation.
Sir, thank you for giving us the information. Dear listeners, it is time to wrap up this episode of the podcast. In the next episode, we will discuss another topic. So stay connected with StudyIQ and keep studying. You can listen to StudyIQ Presents the podcast on all the audio streaming platforms like Spotify, Hubhopper, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Kuku FM, etc. Links are pinned in the comment section below. Thank you.